Well, it's been loosely referred to as the animal farm, a situation where people are treated differently depending on who they are, what they do, and how connected they are to the political class. A proper way to put it, animal farm, where all animals are said to be equal, but in reality, some are more equal than others, also considered. And that's the feeling of many who responded to a social media poll this week on concerns raised by the anti-graft group, the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, following the push by MPs to get a man who stole toilet rolls in Parliament prosecuted. We will get results from that poll shortly. But just this week at Nkaria in the Ashanti region, a 48-year-old father of 4 was sentenced to 24 months in jail for allegedly stealing a waste bin belonging to the municipal assembly. Listen to the story.
Fidelity Bank donated hundreds of bins recently to support the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly's Clean and Green project to keep Kumasi clean. In some areas, however, the bins have suddenly disappeared. Amidst public complaints, there are not enough waste collection containers in the city. Mohammed Rufai was caught after he removed one at Ashtown, KO. He went on his knees in tears to beg the Nkaria Circuit Court for forgiveness, having pleaded guilty with explanation for the charge of stealing.
I
took it from a refuse dump at the racecourse market. I thought they had disposed it off. That's why I took it. I am not a thief. I have never stolen anything in my life. I am sorry.
The judge, His Honor Michael Johnson Abbey, rejected his explanation and sentenced him to 24 months in jail. James Nana Prempe, convener for Environmental and Sanitation Committee of the KMA, tells Love News the judgment will halt or at least minimize theft of the bins.
Yeah, it's on a rampant level because since we installed this litter bins, we have been experiencing it. You go and you won't find it at where you install it. So it's something that is disturbing the assembly.
What happened?
Yeah, you see, it's the citizen. Because as we have witnessed it today, you go and he coming from nowhere, then you just pick it, even knowing what he's going to use it for. So they are just disturbing the project that the assembly is embarking on.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
So that's what happened in Parliament last week when that gentleman stole those toilet roll. We have in the studio the Executive Director of Amnesty International Ghana, Robert Akutuamwafo, for a quick conversation on this. Robert, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And it sounds interesting. I mean, to the extent that it can even sound funny, but it is indeed a serious problem. And I'm wondering what people like you or people like Amnesty International will feel about stories like this, especially looking at the amounts that go into corruption, the amounts that the country loses in corruption, involving political bigwigs and all of those people, and what these people have stolen. I mean, needless to say, a crime is a crime. A theft is a theft, right? How do you feel about this?
Thank you very much. It's very worrying that we don't look at our situation and ensure that we develop our laws and policies to ensure that we do not go beyond what we can carry. It's sad to know that these people stole and their circumstances were not looked at. As human rights advocates, we are always looking at, was the law fair in giving justice to these people? One thing that we're also very worried about is that this man has been sentenced to be put in jail. Our cells,
24 months.
Yes, our cells and our prisons are overflowing, and we are begging government to expand and to do something about it. And we keep pushing people in there. So that is our worry. And for the fact that the political weight that is behind these cases also sometimes influence how speedy they are carried out.
Because this is a municipal assembly.
Yes.
I think this is an assembly. Yes. And what happened in Parliament, for example, happened in Parliament. And there were members of Parliament who were insisting that this guy should be arrested, should be taken through the process.
Yes, so then this gives pressure to whichever judge or investigator is working on the case, and therefore they'll be quick to ensure that these things are done, because one, it has media attention. There are many cases that happen. Somebody goes to steal cassava from somewhere, it doesn't get that attention, and therefore we don't get that speedy process. And that pressure on the judge who is supposed to declare justice, it doesn't give him time to look at the case and look at the circumstances
of the persons involved.
To deliver the justice. So we think that there are a lot of things going on wrong, and we need to look at the law carefully to ensure that we do not put people behind bars.
So in these two cases, what happened at the Municipal Assembly in Kumasi and what happened in Parliament, what would you recommend? Because the thing is, one of the arguments of those who push for prosecution of these people is that if you don't do that, it's not deterrent enough. You don't give them any punishment, it's not deterrent enough, and they'll keep doing it. And when you heard the guy explaining that these people, they go out there, they're just stealing stuff. They don't even know what they're going to do with it, but they're just stealing it. I mean, they just see it and they want to take it. So if you don't punish them, they'll keep doing it. But really, how do we even that out?
So we are not saying that people who commit crime and when investigated they are found to be culpable should not be punished. What we are saying is that there are certain crimes we call petty crimes, and they are and even already in Parliament there's a bill called Alternative Sentencing Bill, which is supposed to help us sentence such people to certain things that we will benefit as a society. Government spends a lot of money on paying laborers and paying people to do certain things. These people can be put to good use, sweeping the streets and all of that. So
rather than putting them in prison and feeding them with our taxes.
Exactly. And then also knowing that our prisons are choked and people are in there getting sick all the time because the place is too full. You go to certain police stations and the whole place is full because there are so many people in there. So it's important that when we are doing these things, we look at them, and we are encouraging Parliament to quickly pass this law and make sure that we don't sentence people who have stolen for the purpose of feeding their children. Because we need to look into these matters, not just to, it looks like our legal system or what we have looks at only punishing people. It doesn't go beyond looking at what happened, what really caused the person to do that. And then also when the person is put behind bars, how do we help the person to change if it is an attitude or something that's deeper?
I'll take your final comment, but let's hear from the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition on this particular matter. She says that there should be equality in the justice system to ensure that politicians are also held accountable and made to face the full rigors of the law when they are found culpable as well.
That is one of the inequalities we have when it comes to administration of justice, because there are people who are jailed for 8 years, for minor offenses, and then people who are able to steal and still walk free, just because some of the systems, they are able to pay very good lawyers, they are able to get, justice quickly, but the poor may not get the same. And it's also one of the issues of inequality that we have identified, so that it doesn't look like the system is set in place to favor others at the expense of the poor, but rather how do we administer justice in such a way that everybody is equal before the law, even as our justice, what's the name, Constitution says that we are all equal before the law. So there shouldn't be inequality, even in justice. And when the poor steals, the poor should be jailed. When the rich steals, they should be jailed. But unfortunately, it does not look like that.
Well, if we have to go by what she says, then everything is fine, because the poor are being jailed, right? Whether the rich are being jailed or not, that's where, Robert, you don't quite agree. But let me take your very final comment about what we do going forward. I mean, it looks to me like we will still speak, but the systems work in the ways that those who run it, those who operate it, want it to work. So even though we're speaking, this guy is going to go to jail 24 months, and I don't know if he'll get anybody to appeal for him, or I mean, if there's even legal support, state legal support for him, we don't know. Let me take your final comment.
So clearly, I mean, what my colleague had said is what we also agree to, that the poor always suffer at the hands of the law. When they come in contact with the law, the legal aid system in place to support people like this feels bad. This year Amnesty reported that there are only 23 lawyers at the legal aid supposed to serve all these people who need it. So imagine this person who needs a lawyer, can't afford, and goes to court. Even we reported that on people on death row, who are on death row, many of them don't get lawyers. That is why they're able to sentence them to death. So we are asking that government should, one, increase the lawyers at the legal aid scheme, ensure that people are able to get access to lawyers when they need it the most, and then also ensure that we pass the alternative sentences bill, so that when people steal and we look at the situation and see that it is not only because the person wanted to steal, but the intention was to do something else, and maybe the person can help in another way, we help the person to do those community activities before we look at the other options that they are available.
Well, Robert, I understand that Amnesty International has a position on what happened in Parliament yesterday, where a member of Parliament, Collins Dowda's home was invaded, according to the Speaker, by police. What's the position? So
we are aware that the Speaker of Parliament has said that we shouldn't abolish the death penalty. Okay. And that is what we have worked on for so long, and we are quite worried that a person of his caliber continues to make statements that goes against our human rights standards as a country. Ghana has signed on so many international law that bounds us to respect human rights. As the Speaker of Parliament, who's supposed to be the person who helps to ensure that both sides or every side is heard, we expect him to always be very, very up to the point, pushing what we already have supported as a country. We have signed onto many laws. In our law, we have it that we respect the right to life. We have said that we ensure that everybody is protected. We only have in our constitution that if somebody commits treason or the person murders another person, then we will sentence the person to death. But as Amnesty International, we believe that committing somebody to death does not solve the problem. There are so many ways to solving such problems than just committing people to death sentence. Okay. Already we have over 163 people in jail. They have not been killed since 1993. We've not sentenced anybody to death. They are languishing in cells. They are being wasted. Why don't we put in place measures to ensure that they become useful to us, than leave them to languish and no president is willing to sign their death warrants? Yes. That's a whole new conversation, if you ask me, but we run out of time. Robert, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome. Robert Akoto Amafo, he's the country director of Amnesty International, Ghana.